The collapse of the Russian army in 1917 was a pivotal moment in World War I, marking the effective end of Russia's participation in the conflict and setting the stage for the Bolshevik Revolution. By 1917, the Russian army, once a formidable force, was decimated by a combination of military defeats, logistical failures, internal dissent, and revolutionary upheaval. This disintegration, often described as the death of the Russian army, was not merely a military failure but a reflection of the broader collapse of the Russian state under the strains of war and social unrest. The events of 1917 reshaped the Eastern Front, altered the course of the war, and had profound consequences for Russia and the world. The Russian army before 1917. At the outbreak of World War I in 1914, the Russian army was one of the largest in the world, with over 1.4 million men mobilized, eventually peaking at around 12 million by 1917. However, it was plagued by systemic weaknesses. The officer corps, drawn largely from the aristocracy, was often incompetent and disconnected from the rank and file, who were mostly illiterate peasants. Equipment shortages, inadequate training, and poor logistics further hampered effectiveness. Despite early successes, such as the invasion of East Prussia in 1914, the Russian army suffered catastrophic losses, including the near destruction of the Second Army at Tannenberg. By 1915, the Central Powers' Gorlice-Tarnów offensive forced a great retreat, costing Russia over 2 million casualties and vast territories, including Poland and parts of Ukraine. The 1916 Brusilov offensive, a temporary success, inflicted heavy losses on Austria-Hungary but exhausted Russian reserves with over 1 million casualties. By late 1916, morale was crumbling, desertions were rising, and the home front was buckling under food shortages, inflation, and war fatigue. The stage was set for the army's collapse. The February Revolution and its impact. The Russian army's disintegration began with the February Revolution, March 1917, Gregorian calendar, which toppled Tsar Nicholas II, sparked by strikes and riots in Petrograd over food shortages and war discontent. The revolution saw soldiers in the Petrograd garrison mutiny, refusing to suppress protests and joining the revolutionaries. This mutiny spread to other units, undermining military discipline. On March 2, 1917, Nicholas II abdicated, ending the Romanov dynasty. A provisional government, led by liberals and moderate socialists, took power, sharing authority with the Petrograd Soviet, a council of workers and soldiers. The provisional government vowed to continue the war, aligning with Allied demands to keep the Eastern Front active. However, the army was in disarray. Soldiers, emboldened by revolutionary fervor, questioned authority, and the Petrograd Soviet's Order No. 1, issued in March 1917, exacerbated the crisis. This decree allowed soldiers to form committees, elect representatives, and challenge officers, effectively dismantling the chain of command. Officers, many loyal to the old regime, were distrusted or overthrown, and discipline eroded as soldiers refused orders they deemed counter-revolutionary. Military and social collapse. The Russian army's operational capacity deteriorated rapidly. In 1917, desertions skyrocketed, with estimates of 1.5 to 2 million soldiers abandoning their posts by mid-1917. Many returned to their villages, driven by hunger, war weariness, and rumors of land redistribution. The front lines, stretching from the Baltic to the Black Sea, became porous, with units disintegrating or refusing to fight. Logistical failures worsened the situation. Food, ammunition, and medical supplies rarely reached the trenches, and disease claimed more lives than combat. By spring 1917, the army was barely functional, held together by inertia and the efforts of a few loyal commanders. In July 1917, the provisional government launched the Kerensky Offensive, aiming to rally support and pressure the Central Powers. Initially successful, the offensive quickly failed due to low morale, mass desertions, and strong German resistance. Bolshevik slogans like peace, land, and bread swayed soldiers, leading to mutinies and 400,000 casualties. It was Russia's final major offensive and marked the army's collapse. Meanwhile, food shortages and strikes destabilized cities, while peasants seized land. The Bolsheviks, led by Lenin, gained support by promising peace and reform, appealing to disillusioned soldiers and workers amid growing revolutionary unrest. The Bolshevik Revolution and the army's end. The Bolsheviks' October Revolution in 1917 marked the final collapse of the Russian army. On October 25th, Bolshevik forces overthrew the provisional government in Petrograd with minimal resistance, as many soldiers supported the Bolsheviks' promises of peace or deserted. Altogether, Lenin's decree on peace soon followed, calling for an immediate armistice. The traditional army disintegrated, replaced by the Bolshevik-aligned Red Army. Talks with Germany began in December, leading to the March 1918 Treaty of Brest-Litovsk, which ended Russia's involvement in World War I, but ceded vast territories and a third of its population to the Central Powers. The Russian army's collapse stemmed from years of crushing casualties, poor leadership, and supply failures. Soldiers, mostly peasant conscripts, faced unbearable conditions and were drawn to revolutionary promises. The February Revolution dismantled unity, while Order No. 1 and soldier committees weakened discipline. Politically, the army lost faith in the provisional government's war effort. Socially, deep inequalities and widespread suffering made Bolshevik calls for land and peace more appealing than patriotism. By late 1917, the Russian army was no longer a coherent force, and the Bolsheviks prioritized consolidating power over continuing the war. The collapse of the Russian army had profound consequences. It ended Russia's role in World War I, allowing Germany to shift forces to the Western Front, prolonging the war until the Allied victory in November 1918. The Treaty of Brest-Litovsk, though nullified after Germany's defeat, weakened Russia's geopolitical standing and fueled resentment that shaped Soviet foreign policy. The death of the Russian army in 1917 was a multifaceted collapse driven by military exhaustion, revolutionary upheaval, and societal breakdown. The February Revolution fractured discipline, the Kerensky Offensive exposed the army's incapacity, and the Bolshevik Revolution delivered the final blow. By the end of 1917, the once mighty Russian army had ceased to exist, its remnants absorbed into revolutionary militias or scattered by desertion. This collapse not only ended Russia's role in World War I, but also catalyzed the rise of Soviet power, reshaping the course of history in Russia and the world.